Now, in this lesson, we continue with our discussion of interests. Okay, this discussion is a continuation of what we recently started under the topic of finance. The topic of finance is divided into subsections. The first section being interest, the second section being banking, and later inflation. So that is the things we are going to look at in general in this topic of what? In this topic of finance. Now, the first thing I would like us to look at is the concept of interest. And interest that we are going to discuss, we are going to break it down, or we are going to divide it again into subsections as being simple interest and what? And compound interest. So that is how we are going to break down our discussion of interest. It will be one step at a time, starting with what? Simple interest and later compound interest. Now, what does it mean? Interest. Okay. So as I have shared here with you on the screen, these are just a small description of what we will be going through. Interest in finance is basically the money paid regularly at a particular rate for the use of money lent or for delaying the repayment of a debt. So very much like trying to say that, starting with the last part, that is for delaying the repayment of a debt, if you borrowed some money and you were supposed to pay back to the rightful owner, but you did not pay in time for some reasons, you will then be expected to pay more than the actual amount of money you had borrowed. That way, the extra amount of money charged is called an interest. Think of it this way. You possibly borrowed some money, say 500 rands, and you are supposed to return it after 1 month. But after 1 month, you were not able to return that money. Now, because you were not able to return that money, what happens here is that you now will be charged more than the 500 what? The 500 rands that you had got initially. You could be charged like 550. So now instead of paying 500 rands, you're paying 500 and what? And 50. Why are you paying 550? It's because you delayed to meet the deadline for payment of the money that you borrowed. And so that delay will cost you the extra 50 rand that you have to add on to the 500. Now that way, the extra 50 rands is called an interest. Well, an interest can also be described as the money paid regularly at a particular rate for the use of money lent. So it's very much like you borrowed some money and the agreement was that after some period of time, you would pay more than what you borrowed. Let's say you borrowed, 800. Now this time, by the end of the month, you are expected, or you are by the agreement required to pay 808 rands. When in actual sense, you borrowed what? You borrowed 800 rands. Now, what this then means is that because you have this agreement of paying the extra amount of money, that extra amount of money added onto the 800 which you borrowed is called interest. Now, interest takes different forms. The rate at which interest is charged, we call it interest rate. That one is normally expressed in percentage. But interest generally means that money regularly paid at a particular rate for the use of money lent or for the delay of payment, that is repayment of debt. Interest is divided into simple interest and compound interest. And by the way, this money is charged for different reasons. Interest is charged for different reasons. Sometimes interest is charged because the person that wants to give you the money is kind of not interested, or sometimes interest is charged because the institution from which you are borrowing the money is into the business of lending out money, and so they will charge you that money. Interest is sometimes charged to help regulate how you are also borrowing money and how you will use the money you have always borrowed. Charging of interest comes for different reasons. And interest is not charged only between one person and the other one. Even countries get into, this type of business deals where a country will borrow some money from another country to clear the debt which is pending, and then they pay later. And that is the kind of business China is doing right now, with the African countries. China will give you money in terms of loan to construct hospitals, roads, even a full town. Then they will expect you to pay back that money over a period of like 10 years or 50 years. Now, when you are paying that money, or the agreement is that when they have assisted you, say with 20 billion US dollars, you don't pay back the 20 million as just 20 million. You pay back the 20 million with interest. They will charge you like, 25 billion or sometimes 28. It can even double. Yes, that is interest. So interest is sometimes charged, to improve relations between individuals, those ones doing business. Well, now let's look at this other concept, which we are calling what? Simple interest. What is this concept of simple interest? Well, an interest paid, that is simple interest, is the interest paid or computed on the original principal only of a loan or the amount of an account. Well, what is this supposed to mean? Well, this is supposed to mean when you borrow money, say 50 rands, and you are expected to pay back 55, that means the extra 5% which you are paying is probably calculated from the 50 as a percentage, okay? Now, it makes a lot of sense as we will be looking at compound interest, because with simple interest, when the period is specified that this money you are paying it after 1 month, that then means instead of paying, okay, well, let's put it this way. You borrowed 50 rands. You are expected, your agreement is that you are supposed to pay 55 rands. Now, because you're going to pay 55 rands, that is going to be for the first month. Then the following month, in the second month, the interest isn't changing. The interest rate isn't changing. What is that supposed to mean is you will still pay the extra 5 rand in the next month. Then in the other month, you still pay the other 5. So you see, in 1 month, interest is 5 rands. In the second month, interest is 5 rands. Adding it, giving a total of 10 rands over 2 what? Over 2 months. Then in 3 months, interest will be 150 rands. Then what? Rather 50 rands. Okay? Then in the 4th month, interest will be 20 rands. That interest is calculated on the original amount of money, which is what? 50 rands. Okay? So just to make it kind of clear, let's say we borrowed, okay? Let's say you borrowed, say how much? You borrowed 50 and the interest is 5, okay? That you have to give as you will be returning this month, okay? Rather this money at the end of the first month. So you see, at the end of the first month, end of the first month, you're going to return what? 50 plus 5. Let me just remove this error. I will write in the final answer. You see that? So now, at the end of the first month, you will be returning 55. But at the end of the second month, it will now be 50 plus 5 for the first month, then plus 5 for the second month, giving what? 60. Then at the end of the third month, okay? At the end of the third month, you will return 50 plus 5 for the first month, 5 for the second month, and 5 for the third month, giving what? Giving 65. And by the end of the fourth month, you will be having 50 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus another 5, giving what? 70 rands. You see that? So what we are trying to say here is this 50 rand is the original principal. The interest for the first month is 5 rand. And that interest does not change. It only increases when you increase the period of engagement. Meaning, if the agreement is that after 1 month, you pay with 5 rands, that means after 2 months, you will pay with 10 rands. After 3 months, you will pay with 15 rands. After 4 months, you will pay with 20 rands. Let me do it another way. So we say the interest is 10%. So you will now be having 10, okay? 10%, which is what? Which is 10 divided by 100. 10 divided by 100. Okay, like this, yes. 10 divided by 100. Now, this 10 divided by 100 is the interest. So how do we deal with this type of calculation? Well, what we have to do is we have to multiply this, the rate, by what? We have to multiply this rate by the amount of money you borrowed. This is interest. Then you will now have that interest added onto the actual amount of money that you borrowed. Because you're not returning only interest, you're returning the money plus the interest. That is if the engagement is only for 1 month. And that will give us what? That will give us 5 plus 55, rather plus 50, which is what? 55. But should it happen that you have extended the period, okay, then interest is going to be 10% for the first month. And 10% is what? Is 10 out of 100. Oh, sorry, not this type here. Rather this one, yes. It's going to be 10 divided by 100 times what? 10 divided by 100 times, right here, times 50, which is the money that you borrowed, plus what? Plus 50. This is for the first month. Then now, for the second month, okay, for the second month, you will again have 10% of 50. So interest is 2 times down. Interest is this for the first time, okay? Yes, that is interest for the first month. It is still calculated on 50. Then now, you will have to add it to interest onto the second month. You see? So interest for the first month is here. Interest for the second month. But it is still calculated on the original amount. And what is the original amount? The original amount is 50 for the first month. The original amount is 50 for the second month. This interest is added onto the what? Onto the principal. And what is that? Well, that is 5 for the first and 5 for the second month, then 50. What will this give us? 60. See that? Even for the third month. For the third month, you will calculate interest for the first month. Then later, you calculate interest for the second month. Then later, you calculate interest for the what? For the third month. And onto it, you add the original what? The amount of money. What is that going to be? Well, it's going to be 5 for the first month, 5 for the second month, 5 for the third month, plus the 50. What is that going to give us? 65. So when we say simple interest is calculated on the original amount, this is what we mean, okay? This is what we mean when we say principal is calculated on the original amount. Now, how is that going to vary when we are dealing with compound interest? Well, compound interest is very interesting and it's very different from simple interest. Compound interest here means interest is compounded. Interest is added. Okay, let's see how that calculation can work. So, we are still using the same amount of data. Well, the definition here is that increasing value of an asset due to the what? Due to the interest earned on both principal and the accumulated what? The accumulated interest. What this means is, if we are still dealing with the 10%, if we are still dealing with the 10%, then this is going to be 10% of the original amount plus what? Plus the original amount, giving us what? Giving us 5 plus 50, which is 55. Now, for the next month, the rate will not change. It is the principal which will change. You see that? The rate is still 10%, but the principal will have changed. And so we will talk of 10% of what? 10% of 55, because now the principal is what? Is 55. You see that? And now we add that. Okay? We add that to the what? To the principal, which we have at that time. You see? And the principal is 55. Yes. What do we get here? Well, here I will need a calculator right away. That is 10% times 55. That is 5.5. See that? So this is 5.5. So this will give us 5.5 now added to 55. What do we get? Well, for the second month, what we get is 60.5. Yes, that is what we get. 60.5. You see, there is already a difference. The amount is not the same compared to what we had initially. Then, for the third month, the rate will stay the same, but the principal will change. Just a minute. All right, I was just plugging in. I was just plugging in the what? The cable. Now, what we have here is this. For the third month, well, we still have 10%, but of the new amount of money, which is what? 60.5. We add what we have got to 60.5. What is this going to be then? Well, this is going to be, let's check with our calculator. That is 10% of 60,5. Sorry, 10% of 60,5. That will give 6.05. Okay, so this is going to be 6.05. That is 6.05. Onto it, we add 60,5. Well, what do we get from this? What we get here is going to be 66.55. Yes, we are adding 60.5. We get 66.55. So you see, the thing here is, with a compound interest, things accumulate much faster. So these are just basic introduction examples. Now, I will take you to a much more practical example, and we will see how this concept, okay, how this concept of compound interest and simple interest can now be used, okay? How this concept can now be what? Can now be used in a much more complex question. All right, so in a much more complex question, well, let's see. So I'm sharing with you one more question here. Now, this question is going to get us into the technical bit of the calculation, where you are dealing with a very much structured form of question, and you have to deal with what? You have to handle, you have to calculate. Now, the question here is that without using any formula, determine the amount of money in the following investments. The first part of the question is 2,000 rands is invested at 5% simple interest per month for 18 months. Then the second question, 10,000 rands is invested at 2.5% compound interest per month for 3 full months. Well, what is this supposed to mean? Now, the question itself is trying to say that investment has been made. Money was taken from somewhere and invested and put into a business. This money is supposed to get interest. Now, they are saying that for the first time, the money put is 2,000 rands. And the interest, according to the agreement, is 5% over a period of 18 months. The question we are now dealing with is, what is going to be this amount of investment over the period of 18 months? How do we calculate that? Well, the way we have been seeing, the calculation is not going to be that much difficult. The thing here is, the interest rate is 5%. So it's going to be 5% of 2,000. Okay? 5% of 2,000 for the first month, for the second month, for the third month, for the fourth month, up to the time when we have reached 18 months. See that? Well, interestingly, I now have to bring again the other screen. That is where I have the tool for the equations. So I'm going to call this activity 1. And activity 1, we are calculating it right away here. Okay, so we are calculating activity 1 right away. So we are calling this calculations, or rather activity 1. So we have it here, activity 1. the first part of the question is 1.1. Well, what we have seen is that the interest rate is 5%. Okay, so we can write it down. Interest rate. Okay, unfortunately, it's not allowing me to space. So I'm just going to use this. Yes, interest rate. Interest rate is 5%. 5%. Yes. What is the principal? Well, the principal, which is the original amount of money available at hand, is how much? Is 2,000. Yes. So what is going to be this amount of money over this period of time? Well, we say the interest then, which is 5%, okay? Let's just say interest is 5% of the principal. And what is 5%? 5% is 5 divided by 100. So we have it as 5 divided by what? 5 divided by 100. Of what? 5 divided by 100 of 2,000. Yes. So what is 5 divided by 100 of 2,000? Well, 5 divided by 100 of 2,000, let me check right away with the calculator here. That's going to be 100 rands. Yes. So this then means in 1 month, okay, in 1 month, the interest is going to be 100 rands. The question now is, how much is it going to be over a period of 18 months? You see that? So this is interest in 1 month. Okay, we can even put it right there. So this is interest in 1 month. The question now is, what is the interest going to be in 18 months? So in 18 months, well, let's say we now have to multiply the interest for 1 month times 18 months. What will that give us? That will give us 100 times 18. That is 100 times what? Times 18. Now, 100 times 18 is 1,000 and what? And 800. So this is what we have got, 1,800. That is what we get over a period of 18 months. That is interest. So now the total amount of money, okay, the amount of money which is going to be available over the period of 18 months is going to be the interest that we had at first, and that was what? 2,000. Added to what? Added to the interest, which is what? 1,800. And what will this give us? This will give us 3,800 rands. So yes, this is the amount of money that is going to be available over a period of 18 months. Okay. Well, now the next question, that is activity 1 part 1.2. Well, in part 1.2, what we are dealing with is a fairly different case, in the sense that the interest rate, okay, it is different in the sense that the interest rate, which is 2.5%, is different from what we had. So we now have a different value for interest rate. The interest rate given is 2.5%. The principal is 10,000 and it's compounded over a period of 3 months. So what do we have to deal with? Well, we have first to list the things that we have been given. So we say the interest rate, is 2.5%, that is 2.5%. What else do we know? Well, we do know that the principal is what? Is 10,000. Well, the time period is what? Is 18, rather is 3 months. So the time period over which the interest is going to be earned. So we say the time period is 3 months. Yes, that is what we have. So now, what is the interest in the first month? So we say interest within the first month. Right. I just needed to correct this because this was what? This was 18 months, not 1 month. So now interest, in fact, just to make it a little bit faster, interest in 1 month is going to be 2.5%, okay? 2.5%, or rather 2.5 divided by 100, because that is what 2.5% mean, or that is what 2.5% mean. So we do what? We divide 2.5 by what? By 100. Then we multiply what we have divided by 100 with what? With 1,000. No, 10,000. This is 10,000. Yes, this is 10,000. Now, this 10,000 that we have got and we have used to multiply is going to give us the interest, because the interest is 2.5% of the principal. So what is this going to be? Well, 2.5% of, that is very much like 2.5 divided by 100, which will give us 0.025, and then later we use that to multiply 10,000. That is 250. So the interest for the first month is what? Is 250. Now the next thing that we want to deal with is interest when we have in the second month. Okay, interest in the second month. So interest in the second month is going to be calculated, compounded. Okay, so it's going to be, well, 2.5%, which is what we have here. It's going to be 2.5% right away of the new amount of money. Notice that the amount of money has now increased from what? From 10,000, rather. Let me put it this way. Okay, in the bracket. Yes, this is what we have. Okay, so now we have 10,000 plus what? 10,000 plus 250. That is the meaning of compounded. The interest is added onto the principal for the first time. That is, the first principal, the first interest is added onto the principal. Then a new principal is formed. This new principal is used to calculate the next interest. So that is what we are doing here. And what is this going to give us? Well, this is going to be 2.5. Well, this is 2.5% of, we can do the whole thing in the calculation. Well, rather, let me put it this way. 2.5% of, when we add 250 to 10,000, we get 10,250. And what is that going to be? Well, right away on the calculator, we'll be having 0.025, which is what? Which is 2.5 divided by 100. Then this is used to multiply 10,250. Yes. This will give us 256.25. 256.25. So you see, so for the first time, interest was 250. In the second month, interest being 256. Interest is not the same. Interest will never be the same when we are using compound analysis of interest. So now in the third month, okay, so we say in the third month, right here. So in the third month, just copy this whole thing, just to make things a little bit easier and faster. Well, so in the third month, we say interest in the third month is going to be 2.5% of what? Of, okay, well, I could put this as 10,250, 10,250 plus what? Plus 256, comma what? Comma 25. So what I have done here is that I created a new amount of money, okay? So the new amount of money, which is the new principal, is going to be the previous principal, which is 10,250, plus the interest for the second month, which is what we have here. 10,250 plus the interest of the previous month. That all together will form the principal on which we have to calculate the interest for this new month. Well, what is this going to result into? Well, this is going to result into 2.5% off. Okay, just take this, 2.5% off. What is 10,250 plus 250? All right, 0.25. Well, we add on to this 10,250. What do we get? 10,000 and what? 10,506. So now what we have got, we use it to multiply this. So times 10,506, okay, 10,506.25, or rather, 0.25. Yes. So this, when calculated, will give us the principal, or rather the principal in the amount of money generated over the what? The third month. So wait, now, well, this is going to be the principal, the interest in the third month, not the principal. No. Interest in the first month here, interest in the second month right here, interest in the third month. Well, let's see what we get from that. So this amount of money that we now got is 10,506.25. We multiply it with what? 0.025. What do we get? We get 262.65. 262.65. Well, we could round this to 66. So this is the principal. Rather, this is the interest. This is the interest, not the principal. This is the interest in the third month. So now the question is, what is going to be the amount of money invested? So now the amount of money invested over that period of time is going to be the original amount of money that we had, 10,000, plus the interest, which is 262.66. or rather 0.66. So this way, what we get, oh sorry, here we are. All right, so there we go. So this way, what we get is going to be 10,000, okay? And 262, that is 10,000 and 262.66. Now that is how you handle this question. Now, the next question then comes immediately, but please note the difference. Please remember the difference, okay? Here we are not using a formula to calculate. The method, in fact, this method of calculation is method of definition. It's also known as calculation of principal, rather calculation of interest by first principles. So some of you who are doing mathematics, you understand these things very well. In mathematics, there is what we call, first principles. That is pure mathematics. Differentiation with first principle. Also here, we are calculating interest by first principles. We are using the first principles to calculate. We are using the definition to calculate. Well, let's go to the second question. We are calling it what? Activity 2. Now, the second question, I'm going to explain the steps. And I would like you to try it out. Let's first have it. So right here, I'm going to share the second question right now, right away. So the second question being shared right now, right away. So this is the second question. The second question ends with the question 2.4. Now, what is the second question saying? Well, the second question is saying 3,500 rands is invested in a fixed deposit account. Interest on the account is calculated at a rate of 7.5% per year, compounded monthly. The life of a fixed deposit is 2 years. Well, let's break this down. This question seems to be a little bit complex. The question is trying to say that someone deposited 3,500 rands in a fixed deposit account, okay? Fixed deposit account is one type of an account where once you have deposited money, you cannot easily withdraw until a period of 2 years has ended. Now, the good thing with it is it carries interest. When you deposit money like that and you inform the bank that officially, I'm not going to withdraw this money only after 2 years. What the bank will do is they will take your money, they will invest it somewhere. While they earn some interest, they will also get for you some interest. So now, the interest for this specific account is 7.5% per year. But the interest is compounded monthly. Now, the question here is question 2.1 right here. The question is, if interest is calculated monthly, calculate the monthly rate of interest. Well, the question is saying this rate is per year. 7.5% is per year. So how can we calculate per month? How can we calculate interest calculated monthly? How do we do that? Well, the monthly rate is just going to be the yearly rate divided by 12. Okay, it's just going to be that. So what you would do here for question 2.1 is simple. Just take 7.5% and divide by 12, what you get is exactly the interest calculated or the interest rate monthly. Just take 7.5 here, divide by 12. What you get is the monthly interest rate. Now, in the second question, the question is, how many times will interest be calculated on the investment? Well, they have already said interest is going to be compounded monthly. It's indicated here. Interest here, here, here. You see that? So that is saying interest is going to be compounded monthly, meaning that 2 years converted to month will be 2 times 12. So what you do here is you have to multiply 2 by 12 so that you get 24 years, rather 24 months. So 24 months is what? Is the number of times over which interest is going to be calculated. So the answer to 2.2 is 2 times 24, rather 2 times 12, which is 24. So the answer to 2.2 is 24 months or 24 times. Well, 2.3. Now for 2.3, which is right here, the question is, use the formula below to calculate how much money there will be in the account at the end of 2 years. That we are supposed to use this formula. How do we use this formula? Well, A is principal. So we put here 3,500, we put it right here. Now, I guess in this case, I now have to write it so that you can see for yourself. Let me again share another screen right away. So now we have seen in activity 2, we have seen 2.1, and we see 2.1 is what? We said 2.1. Well, just a quick recap to see the question. 2.1 is the all right, the monthly yes one. We say 2.1, you just divide. We say 2.1, you just divide. What do you divide? Well, you divide the yearly rate, which is 7.5, okay? 7.5, you divide it by what? You divide it by 12. When you divide this by 12, what you get is called the monthly rate. So let's divide this really quick, really quick. 7.5 divided by what? Divided by 12. We get 0.625, yes. So the monthly rate is 0.625. Now in what? In percent. The next question was 2 point what? Rather, the next question is 2.2. And what is that question? Well, question 2.2 is asking us for something. What's that? It's asking us that how many times will interest be calculated on the investment? Well, how many times will interest be calculated? Interest will be calculated for 2 years. That is what? That is 2 times the number of months in 2 years, which is what? Which is 12. And so that gives us 24 times. So yes, interest is going to be calculated what? 24 times. Then for the next question, which is 2.3. Now question 2.3 is asking us to use the formula. What's the formula? The formula is A equals to P times what? A equals to P times, well, just check out 1 is I, okay, 1 plus I. The whole thing is raised to the exponent, or is raised to what? To n. Well, the information we have is that A is the amount which we are supposed to look for. Then P is the principal, which is what? The principal is, well, let me check real quick. Real quick. When I check real quick, what I get here is, let me check real quick. Real quick is taking a little bit long. Well, real quick is the amount. So P is the principal, is 3,500 this time. It's not 7,000, no, not 10,000, it's 3,500. So we have this. This is 3,500, which is the principal. Now, the principal is P. Now we are multiplying, okay? We are multiplying this with what is inside the bracket. What is inside the bracket? Inside the bracket, we have 1, which we have to add to I. I is the interest. Well, what's the interest? Well, the interest is 10%. Is it? No. The interest is 0.625%. Okay? So this is the interest rate. So we write it there, 0.625%. You know what that means? That means divided by 100. Oh, that's really small. Let's see what comes. So we divide this by what? By 100. Then later, you raise it to what? We raise it to n. N is the number of times. The number of times this money is going to earn what? Interest. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. Let's see. So this is going to give us A equal to what? A equal to 3,500, okay, times what? 3,500 times, well, what is 1 plus? All right, just check it, sure, yes. Just 1 plus, rather, this one, we are going to divide it by 100. What do we get? Then to it, we add 1. What do we get? Well, this is times 1. Well, inside the bracket now, what do we have? Well, inside the bracket, we are going to be having 1, comma, 0. Well, how many 0? 2 zeros, then 6 to 5. 2 zeros, then 6 to 5. Okay? Yes, that's what we have. Now, this is being raised to 24. Now, at this point in time, we are simply going to use the calculator to compute everything so that we get the amount. So the calculator we are going to use this time, it's going to be my calculator, which is right with me here on the table. Unfortunately, I can't share with you the calculator which I'm using on the table. Before me here, I will just enter the value. If you do have one calculator with you there, you can do the same. But what I have right here is my calculator at hand. I'm not able to share it. I'm just going to put here 3,500 times 1,00625. All right, 625. Then I close the bracket. Then I raise it to 24. Let's see what comes. Well, what has come is 4,064. Yes, point what? Comma 52. That is what has come. And that is the amount of money you are going to get over a period of 2 years. So now here, is there any question you would like to ask on this calculation which we have just done? Okay, is there any question that you would like to ask on this calculation which we have just done? Okay, because this is how we calculate this whole thing of compound interest and what? and simple interest. So the second question was asking for compound interest. Now, well, let's see the last bit of this question really quick. So the last bit of this question, really quick, is 2.4, and it is, if at the end of the 2 years, the money were to be left in the account for 1 more month, calculate without the use of the formula, how much money will there be? Well, this thing is very interesting. They're trying to say that after 1 more month, this is now going to be 2.4, the last bit of the question, 2.4. They are saying 1 more month is added. So what is it going to be then? Well, the amount of money this time, without using the formula, is going to be just for 1 month. And you know, for 1 month, our rate is 0.625%. Yes, percent means we have to divide this by 100. Then now, we multiply this rate by what? By our current principal, which is 4,064. Point what? 0.25, rather 0.52. This is interest, and now we add this interest onto the money, which is 4,064. Point what? Rather, comma 52. What do we get from here then? Well, what we get from here is going to be the amount of money over 21 periods, rather 25 months, because now we had over 24 months, we have 4,064.52 as the amount of money. But they said, if we leave that money to stay there for 1 more month, rather 1 more month, what is going to happen? So with the calculator which I have here, and I'm unable to share with you on the screen, I'm just going to have, well, 0.625 divided by 100 gives me some amount of money. Then times 4,046, rather 64. 4,064.52. Then later, onto it we add 4,064. Point what? 0.6.52. What do we get? We get 4,000, this time in rand. We get 4,089. Point what? 0.92, rather, 0.92. So this is how you would handle this question. Now, before leaving, I am going to share another screen with you. Now, this screen I'm going to share with you is the screen containing the next question for you. So please go ahead and handle question 3. So question 3 starts with a graph. Well, you could be like, no, we have not done anything about graph. Well, we have done so many things about graphs. Just check through and do your very best for question 3.1, then question 3.2, then question 3.3, then question 3.4, then question 3.5, and finally question 3.6. And when you are done with that, please submit your working right away. That way, we will come to the end of what? Our discussion of today. And thanks for being there. Thanks for watching.